I love cats. I really love cats. No, I mean I really love cats. They're fantastic little creatures, and one of my favorite things is that we never really domesticated them. Of course, I don't mean that house cats are secretly wild animals. Cats happily live in captivity, tolerate human handling, and show significant physical and behavioral changes from their wild cousins. But we weren't really the ones to make them that way. See, domestication normally relies on artificial selection and breeding. Plenty of other animals have been domesticated, and the changes we see in them are largely because of direct human interference. Horses were bred to be intelligent and strong so we could ride them, cows are meat and milk factories, chickens constantly and predictably produce eggs, and sheep make huge amounts of wool. This is not the case with cats. Cats initiated their own domestication, so many of the characteristics we see in domesticated cats were not for our benefit, but for their own. You see, predators in particular run into a problem of limited resources. It takes a lot of meat to provide enough energy for a predator, so many carnivores, and nearly all felines, are heavily territorial. They need to defend a large amount of area for hunting so that they'll be able to eat enough to survive. Enter agriculture. With the development of farming, humans started having an excess of food, which they would store. These grain stores would attract rats, mice, birds, and other grain-eating pests. Suddenly, human settlements were the top-notch place to be for a hungry wildcat. This posed two teeny tiny little problems. First, to catch in on this bountiful mouse buffet, you had to be not afraid of humans. And secondly, there were many, many cats that had the same idea. So now, all these cats that are used to being highly defensive about their territory are living in much closer quarters. Over the generations, less aggressive cats overall fared better. They weren't getting any injuries from defending their territory, and they weren't wasting time and energy fighting over a resource that was plentiful enough to be shared. This meant that natural selection favored less aggressive cats in urban environments and traditionally territorial ones elsewhere. So the two groups of cats started to diverge from one another by habitat choice linked to temperament. The closest living relative of today's domestic cat is the African wildcat, which are nearly identical to domestic cats in appearance and behavior with one major difference. They can never learn to tolerate other adult cats, including parents, siblings, and even offspring once they reach a certain age. But what exactly is it about domestic cats that lets them live together? Anyone who's ever seen two alley cats in a standoff knows that they're not always the cuddliest of species. But the fact remains that for all their hissing and posturing, actual fights between two house cats are rare. Growling, hissing, screeching, and general aggressive displays are common, but only as a way to establish a dominance hierarchy. Cats have not always been seen as social animals, but recent observation of feral cats shows that they form social ties with kin and other individuals, and even participate in fission-fusion style behavior, where they spend some of their time apart but collect together for periods of time in groups with little to no conflict. These groups are called cat colonies, and they're pretty common in and around cities. So how do cats manage all these friends and acquaintances that their wild ancestors never had to deal with? Well, as a wildcat, the only time you would really need to communicate with other cats was when you were a kitten and your siblings or parent was nearby. In wild felines, we see kittens and juveniles display a wide range of communication behaviors like meowing, kneading, purring, but as the cats mature, these behaviors drop off. As solitary species, the only time adults really need to communicate with one another is during mating or parental behavior. As cats were evolving to be less aggressive and more social, cats that retained these communication behaviors into adulthood could avoid conflict better, and we see them in domestic cats of all ages today. Headbutts, sniffing, rubbing, kneading, and purring are all common displays of affection that cats show, but are fairly rare in wild felines outside of parent-child interactions. Additionally, they use a wide range of tail positions to communicate with fellow felines. One of the easiest to recognize is the friendly approach. Here's my friend Sid, tail up and quirk to the side, showing that he's happy to see me. In short, cats wound up mostly domesticating themselves, and in this process they had to develop ways to communicate and cooperate with one another. Cats are widely regarded as kinda snobbish and cold, but that's simply not true. These guys are just complicated little friends who are only waiting for you to speak the right language.